Good morning. I will discuss womanist theologian Delores Williams and the parallels that she makes between Hagar's story in the Old Testament and the story of African American women and the relationship that they both had and have with God. In Williams' book, Sisters in the Wilderness, she makes the following points. Hagar's heritage was African, as was black women's. Hagar was a slave. Black American women had emerged from a slave heritage and still live in light of it. Hagar was brutalized by her slave owner, the Hebrew woman Sarah. The slave narratives of African American women and some of the narratives of contemporary day workers tell of the brutal or cruel treatment black women have received from the wives of slave masters and from contemporary white female employees. Day workers were black women who did domestic work in the homes of white people and also raised their children. The 2009 novel, The Help, which was made into a movie, was written in the voice of black help, or day workers, by a woman raised by black maids herself and who is white. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, made in the early 60s, romanticized the relationship that the day worker had with the family. Williams points out that Hagar had no control over her body. It belonged to her slave owner, whose husband Abraham ravished Hagar. A child, Ishmael, was born. Mother and child were eventually cast out of Abraham and Sarah's home without resources for survival. The bodies of African American slave women were owned by their masters. Time after time, they were raped by their owners and bore children whom the masters seldom claimed. These children were slaves as their mothers and who were often cast out by selling them to other slaveholders. Hagar resisted the brutalities of slavery by running away. Black American women have a long history of resistance that includes running away from slavery in the antebellum era. Like Hagar and her child Ishmael, African American female slaves and their children after slavery were expelled from the homes of many slaveholders and given no resources for survival. Hagar, like many women throughout African American women's history, was a single parent. But she had a serious personal and salvific encounter with God, encounters which aided Hagar in the survival struggle of herself and her son. Over and over again, black women in the churches have testified about their serious personal and salvific encounters with God, encounters that helped them and their families survive. Williams says that God participated in Hagar's and her child's survival on two occasions. When she was a runaway slave, God met her in the wilderness and told her to resubmit herself to her oppressor, Sarah, to return to bondage. Williams states that Latin American biblical scholar Essa Tamez may be correct when she interprets God's action here to be on the survival of Hagar and her child. Williams says that perhaps the best resource for assuring the life of mother and child were in the home of Abraham and Sarah, instead of Hagar giving birth in the wilderness. Then, when she and her child were finally cast out of Abraham and Sarah's home without the proper resources for survival, God provided Hagar with a resource. God gave her new vision to see survival resources where she saw none before. Williams says that liberation is not given to Hagar by God, but finds its source in human initiative. William finally says that even today, most of Hagar's situation is similar with many African American women's predicament of poverty, sexual and economic exploitation, surrogacy, domestic violence, homelessness, rape, motherhood, single parenting, ethnicity, and meetings with God. She says that many black women have testified that God helped them make a way out of no way. They believe God is involved not only in their survival struggle, but also supports their struggle for quality of life, which making a way out of no way suggests. Williams says, in Black consciousness, God's response of survival and quality of life to Hagar is God's response of survival and quality of life to African American women and mothers of slave descent struggling to sustain their families with God's help. My discussion question is, where have you seen the providence of God at work to help people to survive in their wilderness experience? Thank you.